Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union and the ACRU Action Fund. And I want to welcome you and offer a very happy new year for our first broadcast of the Live Free TV of 2026. An incredible year. 250 years of American independence is what we will celebrate this year, along with the great 250 years of remembering George Washington's crossing of the Delaware River Christmas night, Christmas Eve night for the Battle of Trenton. But also for those of us here in the great state of Texas, March the 3rd of 2026 will be 190 years that we remember and we celebrate the Texas independence because Texas is the only state in the union that has its own Declaration of Independence because it was a republic for about 8 or 9 years before it became one of the states in this great constitutional republic. And I also just want to take the time to thank each and every one of you for all of your thoughts and your prayers as I recover from my hip replacement surgery that was 5 weeks ago. I'm doing very well. The recovery and everything is going well, the physical therapy. So thank you very much. But I'm so glad to be back in the chair. So glad to be getting going with another year of Live Free TV. And I will tell you that when I look at what is happening this year, from a constitutional perspective, we're facing an incredible crisis in our country. You know, people always talk about threats to democracy, especially the leftists. But when you talk about threats to the American Republic, this longest running constitutional republic the world has ever known, this constitutional republic where we will celebrate its independence here later on in July, let's just go to the Constitution. Let's just discuss some things that I think sets the record straight. In Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, which is known as the Guarantee Clause, there are two things that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the union. Number one, they're supposed to guarantee us a Republican form of government, not a Republican Party, but a Republican form of government, because America is a republic. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Franklin said on that day, September the 17th of 1787, to Mrs. Powell in Philadelphia, you have a republic if you can keep it. The other very important thing that we have to understand as we look at what is happening in our country right now is a statute, law, Title 18, United States Code 1325. Unauthorized entry into the United States of America is a federal offense. First time misdemeanor, but times after that, subsequently, they are felony offenses. So when you understand that here in the Constitution of the United States of America, the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the union to protect it from invasion, people coming into this country wrongfully, illegally. Then also we have in United States Code law, and it says unauthorized entry into the United States of America is a federal offense. So why do we have people in the streets attacking and impeding and interfering and obstructing federal law enforcement operations to remove people that are here illegally and also committing crimes against the American people? That's just the bottom line. Because what ICE, the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency, was established to do is directly related to the two things that I just told you about. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, and Title 18, United States Code 1325. They are enforcing the law. They are enforcing our rule of law. And furthermore, when you decide that you're going to impede, interfere, or obstruct their operations, that is a crime. That is a felony offense as well. So the Marxist left that is going out and inciting this violence against ICE officers that are saying that they are not going to abide by the Constitution and the law, they're wrong. And to have elected officials that are inciting this, they should be held accountable and responsible as well for what they're doing. Because when I listen to members of Congress, where I once served, and other people as well, who supposedly have taken an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America and are supposed to understand the laws of this country, For them to talk about they want to defund immigrations and customs enforcement, they want to abolish immigrations and customs enforcement. What that tells me is that we have elected officials in the United States of America that are violating their oath to the Constitution, that are undermining not just the rule of law, but law in the United States of America. That there are people who have been elected here in the United States of America that want to see the undermining of the sovereignty of this constitutional republic, of this nation. And that cannot be tolerated. That cannot be accepted. And I think it is quite troubling when you have a governor, Tim Walz in Minnesota, that stands up and says he is going to take his National Guard and he is going to use them against federal law enforcement. If you want to talk about insurrection, that is an insurrection. And oh, by the way, it kind of reminds me when those Southern Democrats decided they would fire cannons against Fort Sumter, federal troops, and they started the Civil War. What the Marxist left is doing here in the United States of America, they're starting a civil war. And when you have members of Congress like an Ilhan Omar that goes up on TV and says some of the most absurd things, to include that ICE is not arresting anyone that is not being held and detained. The reason why ICE is in Minneapolis is because you have a governor and also a mayor, Jacob Fry, who have said that they have declared themselves sanctuary state and sanctuary city. Now, once again, this is something that is unconstitutional and unlawful. When these elected officials are saying that their jurisdictions, being at the state or at the municipal level, are sanctuaries for people that are here illegally, people that have broken the law, Title 18, United States Code 1325, and also that have violated our Constitution and challenged the federal government, well, guess what? That's unlawful. That's unconstitutional. It's immoral. It's unethical. And they are complicit. They are actually accomplices to a crime because they are harboring criminals within their jurisdictions. That cannot stand. And furthermore, the whole thing about establishing yourself as a sanctuary city and sanctuary state is a violation of Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution, known as the Supremacy Clause. The federal government, when they are acting in pursuance thereof, those are the three very important words in the Supremacy Clause, in pursuance thereof to our rule of law, to our Constitution, well, they are supreme over state and lower jurisdictions, municipalities. So this whole thing about saying ICE cannot come into our city, they cannot come into our state, I'm sorry. If you are violating the Constitution of the United States of America, if you are violating United States law, statute, then you are just as illegal as the people that you have allowed to have sanctuary there. And the Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency has every right under the Constitution, under United States law, to be there. And furthermore, if these states and these jurisdictions were doing what they're supposed to do, and keeping these people in jails or in detention facilities who have detainers on them, meaning that ICE has contacted these local jurisdictions and said, here's a person that is here illegally. We would like to come pick them up. No. What they're doing in places like Minneapolis and other places across the United States of America is they are releasing these individuals back onto the streets because they don't care. As a matter of fact, we had a judge in Wisconsin who had a case brought against her. She has since stepped down from her position, but she actually took a criminal illegal immigrant who was in her court, out of her court, back into her private chambers, and released him out onto the streets. That was caught on camera. Luckily, there were ICE agents outside, and they detained the individual. And yes, she had violated the law. A judge, a person who's supposed to be making rulings based upon the law, not her judicial activism. This is a huge problem in the United States of America because people are going out into the streets. They fail to understand that they are breaking the law. They fail to understand that they're standing on the side of lawlessness. They have aligned themselves with criminal illegal immigrants who are here and committing acts of murder, of rape, child rape, of being pedophiles, sexual assault, assault period, and many other crimes. And what they're trying to say to us is that they want them on the streets. They want them to continue to, well, do what we saw here in Texas, the Jocelyn Nungare, a 12-year-old who was raped and killed by two Trinidad members illegally here from Venezuela. Laken Riley, a nursing student at the University of Georgia who was killed by a criminal illegal immigrant. Rachel Moran, a Maryland mother who was killed by a criminal illegal immigrant while she was just out jogging on a trail in Maryland. The Marxist left is saying that that's who they want to align with. And these calls for the impeachment of the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, where were these calls for impeachment when Alejandro Mayorkas, the previous Biden administration Homeland Security Secretary, would lie before Congress saying that the border is secure? If you go back and you look at the mission of Homeland Security and his mission as the secretary thereof, he failed in the mission. The Biden administration completely failed. Joe Biden himself, in his first 3 months of being in office back in 2021, reversed some 90 to 95 executive orders of the Trump administration and opened up the border here in the United States of America. The executive branch, the president, in Article 2 of the Constitution, does not have any jurisdiction to grant pardons for people that are here illegally. But that's exactly what the Biden administration did. And where were the protests then? Where was the care and concern? Where were the people that wanted to go out and resist then, or to interfere or intercede? As a matter of fact, during the Biden administration, when a state like here where I live in the state of Texas wanted to act in pursuance thereof of the Constitution under Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3, to be able to protect itself from invasion since the federal government had failed to do so, it was the Biden administration that sent threats down to Texas and other states that sought to do the same, that obstructed those states from doing what the federal government, the Biden administration, failed to do. So can we continue to sit around and allow this lawlessness to happen? Absolutely not. These unlawful actions, these unconstitutional actions, no. And for what I've been reading, now New Jersey is considering also making itself a sanctuary state for illegal immigrants, which again is unconstitutional and unlawful. See, this is a critical midterm election year. And I don't want to talk about politics, but I will talk about the Constitution. I will talk about lawlessness. And if we have individuals that are looking at the Constitution of the United States of America and thumbing their nose at it, individuals that know they are absolutely wrong, individuals that know all of the things that I've stated here, which I hope you will listen and you will share with others, to include your friends on the Marxist leftist side, to get them to understand that you have no factual basis. You have no legal basis to stand on. All this is you saying that you hate America, that you hate Americans, that you don't believe that America should exist. You don't believe that we should have sovereign borders. You believe that anyone should be able to come into this country, violate our laws, and wantonly commit acts of violence against Americans. And you won't even keep them locked away. You will release them back onto the streets. The Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison, someone with whom I served in Congress, the gentleman who took his oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America as his hand was on the Quran, a book that, if you are a good student of history and understand the verses thereof, calls for the murder of Jews and Christians, which we see happening all across the world. Keith Ellison, that attorney general in Minnesota, has been sending letters out to sheriffs in the state of Minnesota, threatening them for working and cooperating with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency under the 287G program that has 3 different models by which you can cooperate and work with ICE to make sure we don't have criminal illegal immigrants on our streets. It's the task force model, it's the warrant model, and the detainer model. Why would an attorney general, the quote unquote top law enforcement officer in a state, sent a letter threatening sheriffs, duly elected constitutional officers, law enforcement officers, telling them they can't work with ICE? Because obviously, the rule of law means nothing to Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. It means nothing to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. It means nothing to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. It means nothing to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and the rest of their ilk. To go out and demonize, dehumanize, denigrate, and disparage the men and women of the United States Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency and also put their families at risk, that is without a doubt the most disgusting and despicable act that I can think of. They're there to keep us safe. And recently, Governor Walz of Minnesota, in inciting the violence, told people to go out and take pictures of the ICE officers so that they can go and pick them up and arrest them. I'm sorry. That is, once again, seditious and even borderline treasonous, Governor Walz. And you should know that. Having served in the National Guard yourself, you know that guardsmen take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. But yet you feel that it's not important that they support and defend the Constitution. And you, Governor Walz, also took an oath as a member of Congress, and I served with you as well, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, to uphold our laws, which you are failing to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this very first Live Free TV episode of 2026, when people say no one is above the law, that means governors, attorney generals, mayors, congressmen and women, senators, who are going out and purposefully, intentionally, willfully undermining the very essence of who we are as a nation, as a country, and our sovereignty, as our standing as a republic. They are going after law enforcement officers who are sworn to enforce the law. Because to the members of the Marxist left, the progressives, the socialists, the law means nothing to them when it stands in the way of their ideological agenda. And oh, by the way, this whole thing about ICE officers wearing masks, well, they have to protect themselves and protect their families. But how funny it is that no one on the left says anything about domestic terrorist organizations like Antifa and others that constantly wear masks, have attacked federal law enforcement. Here in Dallas, not too far from where I sit now, we had a sniper attack against an ICE detention facility. We've had ambushes against detention facilities in Alvarado, Texas. We've had someone fire upon an ICE detention facility in McAllen, Texas. We've had members of Antifa even go and attempt to burn down federal buildings in Portland. And of course, let us not forget the mob in Minneapolis that burned down a police precinct. I don't want to see these type of people be in elected positions in the United States of America. As a matter of fact, I think the time is coming for our United States Department of Justice to send a very clear message to those who are willfully seeking to promote lawlessness. So continue to tune in to us here at Live Free TV. Go to our website, theacru.org, and learn more about our Defender Initiative, because we need to stand by the law enforcement officers who are enforcing the law and call out the ones that are not, because that's the reason why you have 3,000 ICE officers in Minneapolis, because guess what? They have no backup from the Minneapolis Police Department, who have been told, if I can borrow the phrase from Benghazi, to stand down. That is how troubling the Marxist left has become. There are some people that say the left wants a civil war. I would say that we are already in an ideological civil war between progressivism, Marxism, communism, statism, socialism, and constitutional conservatism, true classical liberalism. But our Constitution, that thing that has kept us together, our rule of law, is under assault. And it's front and center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And if you want to live free, you can't with people that don't want you to be safe and secure in your own homes. And never forget that one of the basic tenets of dictators, despots, leftists has always been to take away private gun ownership as well as private property ownership. That is in the Communist Manifesto, the 10 planks thereof of Karl Marx. But they don't want you to be able to defend yourself. They don't want law enforcement to be able to enforce the law. So what do they really want? They want gangs. They want chaos. They want people on our streets who will kill us, rape us, and our children. That cannot stand if you are steadfast and loyal to our constitutional republic. And study the Constitution, especially in this year, and study the concepts that Thomas Jefferson laid down in the Declaration of Independence. Because our life, our liberty, our property, pursuit of happiness, those are inalienable rights that are endowed to us from the Creator God, not from man, not from government. And we need to be able to let people once again know that government only exists by the consent of those being governed. Thomas Jefferson never said ruled. God bless you all. And tune in next time for another episode of Live Free TV.